Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Narrow Path Man with myself, Luke McCann. I had the privilege last night of having a conversation with Rebekah Farmer, probably the most remarkable transformational journey and story that I've heard in terms of Rebekah had a laundry list of ailments and different things which were almost killing her in effect and left her in hospital on multiple occasions, and basically through two main changes to her life in terms of adopting a ketogenic carnivore specific diet. She's had remarkable changes to her functionality, and she's now training with like really high intensity every single day. She pops out of bed, as she explains, every single morning at 5 a.m. with a real vigor and zeal for life. And additionally, secondly, and certainly last but not least, Rebekah explains how it was only whenever she fully surrendered to and put her full faith in God that she was able to achieve the health transformations that she has experienced in life. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of different things here in terms of, I know myself, different people, in loved ones in your life may have or may know people with different autoimmune diseases and different diseases and ailments, which are going to be covered today. So if you think that other people may benefit from hearing this story, I would really encourage you to share the video with them. And lastly, the faith element that we get into is towards the last 10 or 15 minutes. So I'd really encourage you to stick around, and I'll put time splits in the video description below if you want to just specifically look at the faith element. So yeah, enjoy the show. My head used to be bigger than the rest of my body. It was painful to hold up my own head. I stopped going to church at one point simply because it was painful to sit down for that long. I was riddled with body aches, severe fatigue, digestive issues, brain fog, mood disorders. Chronic Lyme disease is no joke. At the time, I was unaware of over 10 autoimmune diseases and a chronic C. diff infection that almost took my life. Now I am free. I've been delivered from over 10 autoimmune diseases, chronic Lyme disease, chronic C. diff, mood disorders like OCD, insomnia, depression and anxiety, narcolepsy, ADHD, digestive issues like diverticulitis, gastroparesis, slow transit colon, and IBS. I'm thriving more than ever, more than I ever imagined possible. I'm one of those crazy people that wakes up at 5 a.m. without an alarm and a giant smile on my face. Never say never. There is always hope. Rebekah Farmer, it's a privilege to have you here, and thanks very much for taking the time. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for reading that.
No. That was so that's one of Rebekah's latest Instagram posts. So yeah, you've had quite an extraordinary journey, and I'm full of both admiration and intrigue to hear all about your journey so far. So, certified health and life coach, Carnivorous Keto ambassador, and last but not least, lover of God. So really interesting story and journey you've had so far. I suppose, do you want to just start with letting us know about your journey and where it all began, and the different health ailments that you had, and how you've managed to overcome them?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with osteoporosis in 6th grade. So from a very young age, malnutrition was detected. I had really bad asthma even before then. I was diagnosed with failure to thrive by multiple different doctors. Mm-hmm. And that's just a scary diagnosis, failure to thrive.
What is that, like a technical scientific thing, or is it just
I think it has to do with your central nervous system.
Okay.
And if you Google it, there are different descriptions of it. Mm-hmm. But basically, I was always getting sick, always being put on antibiotics. And in 7th grade, I ran into severe mood disorders. I was diagnosed with OCD, narcolepsy, insomnia, depression, ADHD. And these were not just diagnoses. I was truly struggling.
Yeah.
Especially the OCD and the narcolepsy. It was really bad. So I was put on Adderall, clonazepam, and Ambien. And of course they said, you can take these long term, they're not addictive. So I took those for 13 years, over 13 years actually.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of a zombie, it was a way to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And they really stole large parts of my personality, but I didn't think there was any other option.
Mm-hmm.
So I took those all the way up until 2017. And I continued to get worse, even though I was taking them. I thought I was having a heart attack. This was right after high school, and I was rushed to the emergency room, and they diagnosed me with degenerative disc and costochondritis, which is inflammation of the chest tissue. They pumped me full of morphine, and they said, manage your anxiety.
Right.
Yeah. And I started seeing a chiropractor, and that did help. Discovered that I had scoliosis. But I just continued to suffer, get worse and worse. So in 2017, I was doing real estate full time. I was engaged, and this was right after wisdom teeth removal surgery, where they give you antibiotics and painkillers. So I took those, and I think that's when my gut it broke the last straw. Mm-hmm. And I was bedbound with suffocation attacks and anxiety. I couldn't breathe. I was so tense that I literally couldn't unclench my fists. I couldn't open my arms. So I was again rushed to the emergency room, and they just say it's anxiety. I was calling my parents to come over and massage me so I could breathe. Yeah. It was horrible.
I suppose whenever they tell you that it's just anxiety as well, that in itself kind of creates positive feedback loop in a kind of negative way in your head, because you're panicking because you're like, there's nothing that I can do. If they're just telling me it's anxiety and it's in my head, then it's not going to go away, because they're not giving me something constructive or clear that I can do, to try and get out of this. So that's it's a scary place to be. How did you then, or I suppose, did you come across any individuals or information, and like, how was it that you managed to kind of get out of that position?
So that's when I decided, well, first of all, it wrecked, I was prohibited to work due to medical instability. And I broke up with my fiance because I was a monster. Like, I turned into a monster. So that was the point that I realized I can't keep taking these meds. They're not even helping. Yeah. So I decided I've got to get off of these medications. And I have a relative who is versed in keto. She's the reason that I had already been keto for over 15 years. And I was like paleo before that. I've never eaten like the standard American diet.
So what is, I suppose, for people that might know, what is keto and what's paleo? What do they consist of?
Low carb. It's removing the sugar and the carbohydrates so that your body at least can run on fat, use fat as a fuel source. Okay. And this reduces, oxidative damage is created when we run on glucose. Even that alone can really benefit some people, to have the ability to use fat as fuel, metabolic flexibility. So, but after taking that Adderall, it was actually difficult for me to get back into ketosis, because I was always in fight or flight mode. Yeah. So I reached out to this relative, and she encouraged me to get off the meds and embark on a more strict version of keto. So that's when I actually started looking at my macros, making sure I was eating enough fat. And I learned lots of tips and tricks just during that time. And so I experienced relief when I was doing like a 4-to-1 fat to protein ratio, which is a lot of fat and not enough protein for something to be sustainable. Okay. But I was dealing with non-epileptic seizures. I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, and I started working with functional medicine doctors on top of Lyme literate doctors. And that's when I uncovered a plethora of autoimmune issues. Also, before that, I worked with a GI doctor, and they're like, you've got gastroparesis, diverticulitis, true celiac, IBS, slow transit colon. These are tests that I just never ran because I thought it was normal to be bloated and in pain every time I ate.
Yeah.
So for anyone who is embarrassed to talk about poop, don't be, see what's going on. So I was really suffering, but the high fat keto helped me at least get out of bed because I was bedbound, truly.
Had you, so how long, sorry, had you always felt this way, or?
No, it hit me. So I have always felt low grade, not great. And in 7th grade, those mood disorders, they took over. OCD, I mean, I couldn't hear my own thoughts. And this went on for so long. And like I said, the meds like the Adderall and clonazepam, they just made me get by. I was surviving.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. Yeah. And I dealt with chronic pain for a long time, but it progressively got worse until finally my central nervous system snapped. And it was like, I don't have any choice but to do something else. I had to.
So I suppose when did you make like a breakthrough then? And because for anyone, you can follow Rebekah on Instagram at Tailored Keto Health. I'll put links in the description for all your stuff below. But like Rebekah's probably the most active person that I have on my Instagram in terms of constantly exercising, really high intense every single day. So like when did you make the breakthrough in terms of getting to full functional thriving health? Was it specifically whenever you moved towards the carnivorous keto, or what was it?
Yes. Okay. And I'm getting there.
Okay.
So after that 4-to-1 fat to protein ratio, I thought, this is the answer. I'm going to do this forever. I'm getting better. That's when I decided to become a health coach. And then I got even worse. I started losing rapid amounts of weight. All my doctors were like, you have an eating disorder. You're doing keto. Of course you're losing weight. That's when I started tracking my calories. I was eating up to 6,000 calories per day and still losing weight. Okay. I was thrown into an eating disorder unit and treated there for an entire month against my will. That was horrendous. And so finally, one of my functional medicine doctors tested me for C. diff, which is basically a bad bacteria that takes over the good bacteria in your gut. That was the source of malnourishment. That's why weight was falling off of me. But no one even thought to test for it for so long. So they just assumed, oh, you're doing keto, that's why you're losing weight. So once I discovered that, I took 13 rounds of antibiotics. I was resistant to all of them. So I was approved for a fecal transplant. I did that and I still had the C. diff. Did another fecal transplant. The C. diff it went away for about a month, or maybe 2 months, month and a half. And I think I felt it the day it came back, but I tested again and it was positive, sure enough. So I had a third fecal transplant and it's still there. So they're telling me it has seeded in your gut. And I was desperate. I was really scared. And so my electrolytes were constantly off because I'm just losing all of my nutrition and electrolytes and minerals. So I was in my third emergency room back to back. And at this point, I was begging them to treat me with an eating disorder. I said, I need to refeed my body and I need your help. I was involuntarily throwing up due to ulcerative colitis. And the autoimmune issues continued to compile as the situation got worse and worse. As I continued to stay in this rut of not being able to absorb my nutrients, my system just kept shutting down. So at this point, I've been diagnosed with lupus, crest scleroderma, They told me that I shouldn't expect to live past 30 years old. The ulcerative colitis, which came from the C. diff, they think. So at that point, they said, we need to hook you up to a feeding tube and remove your colon. And that was the point that I decided I have to do this carnivore thing. I had already tried it 8 times, but I did just beef, salt, and water, because that's what everyone says. They're like, you're not doing it the right way. So I was very dogmatic about it, and I always felt worse when I did that. So this time around, I decided I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to do this in a way that makes it sustainable for me. And I spoke with the dietitian in the hospital, and I said, you've got to let me eat only meat. And she allowed it. She put me in touch with the chef in the kitchen, and he was sending up multiple entrees of meat, hard-boiled eggs, and butter. And I was hoarding that in my room, and I got away with it because I was already being held in isolation because of the C. diff. And my blood sugars stabilized. I have someone coming in. We might have to cut this out.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Well, here I can pause.
How's that?
Okay.
My blood sugar stabilized, and I no longer needed glucagon shots, which I needed all the time. I was constantly dealing with hypoglycemia, and I was able to gain 4 pounds in the emergency room in 1 week. The involuntary throwing up stopped. So all these things happened, and the doctor found out what I was doing, and she said, we can't hold you anymore. You're too stable. We don't even know what to tell your insurance. So she said, go home and do your weird all meat diet. And I never looked back. At the time, I was actually in an abusive I was dealing with domestic abuse. And when I went back, it was like I had this brand new resiliency, and I was able to think. My cognition and mood improved within 2 weeks. And it's like, I have to get out of here, and I don't know how, but I had the confidence. It was like I just needed that. Finally, something was working. That was the breakthrough moment. So letting go of being dogmatic, making it my own, gearing it for my own bio-individual needs, using my critical thinking. I had experience. I understand the mechanisms behind carnivore or keto. So, I think that God twisted my arm, and he said, you've got to let go of this keto thing. I made it up that I was going to do it forever. And he was telling me, you've got to let me give you wisdom instead of deciding you're going to do one thing for the rest of your life. And I was also addicted to those keto foods. I was struggling with binge eating. At the sight of my own emaciated body, I was extremely triggered. And everyone was just telling me, you've got to eat like it's your job. So of course, I'm just, that became a real problem after I was misdiagnosed and treated with an eating disorder. So ever since then, it's been a fairly steady progression. I gained 65 healthy pounds in 1 year. And all of my lab work is textbook perfect. My hormones, my electrolytes, my vitamins, and all of the autoimmune it's gone. I had chronic Epstein-Barr, even the chronic Lyme. And I tried a lot of things for that Lyme disease. I did ozone therapy. I did IV treatments for a short time. They didn't work. So I believe that doing this got my central nervous system into a supported place, and that improved my detoxification pathways. There's so many little things that, my body finally was in a supported place. And I've come to discover that everyone looks different. I have clients who do best on a paleo diet. I'm not just a carnivore and keto coach. I'm a believer that everyone has bio-individual needs.
Yeah, I totally get it. I actually I don't know exactly, but I probably came across your channel because the first person that I interviewed on a podcast, I don't know if you know him. He's a guy called Mike Gorman. Gormy Goes
Oh,
Keto.
Gormy Goes Keto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was funny. So he actually lost 300 pounds through using keto.
Yeah.
And then,
Incredible.
yeah, no, an amazing story, and a great guy. But and I suppose I probably came across him in the first place because about 2 years ago, I was noticing a lot of different health issues in myself. And through just Googling and internet research and things like this in time, I noticed that I had about 90% of it was something like 10 of the 12 symptoms of type 2 diabetes. So it was only through
Oh.
a kind of period of going through YouTube channels and people like Dr. Ken Berry, people like this,
Yeah.
who,
Yeah.
started to kind of inform me about just the whole idea of doing a keto diet and how basically if you replace well, understanding first of all how you're moving your body from using glucose and carbohydrates as your primary energy source to using fats effectively. Whenever your body moves into ketosis, that's why they call it keto. That's whenever your body's transition fully into movement using fats as your primary energy source. But I similarly noticed now I wasn't feeling great, but it was nothing close to what you were experiencing. But again, I noticed that absolutely every symptom that I had went away. So
Wow.
it is fascinating that diet has such a major impact on our lives. And I completely agree with you in what you're saying in terms of every single person has different requirements, different challenges, but different requirements in terms of what we ought to be consuming. So I
Yeah.
would always encourage people to kind of just experiment as much as possible with all sorts of different diets that other people say are good, healthy things that have led to them having better health. But there's loads of different people that I know, my own family and friends who have different autoimmune diseases or are just generally like constantly lethargic and have fuzzy, foggy brains and things like this. And
Yeah.
it's almost a shame, especially where I'm from. I think it's a thing where everyone just kind of has this standard diet and doesn't really want to, experiment with what seem to be exotic diets all that much. But really, like very small tweaks to your diet can have major beneficial impacts.
Totally.
So yeah, like that
Yeah.
you have probably the most remarkable health transformation story that I've come across in terms of dietary changes. But it's wonderful, and it's wonderful that we're now in this era where the information is out there in terms of if you search for different symptoms that you may have, people may come across your profile or other similar profiles and then can
Yeah.
learn. So I suppose
Yeah.
technology is a wonderful tool in that regard.
Totally.
So what are your energy levels like? I suppose now, like I had a rough idea of your story before, but I didn't know it was that difficult and that much of a series of challenges. I suppose now personally you've mentioned as well as your health, but I now understand why you train so intensely now, because it's kind of like you must be joyous that you're able to do it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. Challenge. I welcome challenge. Like I'm not in pain. It's a
Mhm.
celebration. It is a celebration. It is never punishment. I couldn't, I really couldn't hold my head up for a long time.
Wow.
So I'm just excited and grateful.
Your neck looks great.
Oh, thank you.
You can hold it. You're standing up. I'm sitting down. So you can clearly hold it up all right now. And then I suppose, I'm really interested in terms of what would your standard daily food consumption look like then? What sort of things do you typically eat now?
Do you want me to answer that or energy levels first?
Whichever you prefer. They're both good.
What I eat on a regular day is a little bit different right now because I'm doing a high protein experiment. But my regular basis thing that I did for a long time, especially when I was healing and what I resort to, when I'm not doing an experiment, would be a variety of fatty meat. I love using organs as well. They add variety. I'm totally savage, nose to tail. I eat bones. I eat, you know, anything, pretty much anything. So I love lamb. It's my favorite. Lamb, goat, liver, kidney, beef. For a long time, I was making air fried fish skins. I know it sounds gross, but they're really good and they're actually really popular in Asia. And I did this
Mhm.
because honestly, I was broke for a long time and they're free from your local seafood merchant. So
Wow.
I was using those as a great source of collagen and omega 3s. And I do bone broth. I almost always have bone broth. Um, Fatty lamb is probably my favorite thing though.
Hmm.
And but so right now during this high protein experiment, I am doing lots of mahi mahi, maybe some turkey and shrimp, and I'm loving it. My body is loving it, and I never thought that I would be doing high protein, lower fat. I always was in the high fat camp, but it just speaks to the level of healing that I've been through.
Mhm.
Um, and insulin sensitivity. My blood sugars are never above 85, which is awesome. So it changes. And, for anyone who's watching this, be aware that what works best for you right now might not be what works best for you in a couple of months, depending on where you're at. So that's that. I also have carnivore brownies. I eat egg yolks, butter, custard, waffles, carnivore ravioli. These are all things that I created to make it sustainable for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I think people need to do. If this is a lifestyle, then you need to give yourself some wiggle room,
Mhm.
and it's fantastic. So
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And like it sounds like you've an incredible variety of different foods in your diet, even though it's all
yeah,
protein fat based, you know. I think even
animal
whenever I was
based.
doing keto, one thing that I really struggled with was, pretty much every day almost looked the same in terms of what I was eating. And then I've over the last couple, so now I probably do eat more carbs, and I've regressed into more of a normal kind of. I just have low carbs in general. I think that's the only real kind of sustainable difference that I've made. But I'm able to function
That's
well, so for the
good.
moment I'm okay. But I actually, one of my last podcasts was with the guy Nate Stone. He's a testosterone expert, and I was telling him,
Oh,
yeah, I eat a lot of peanut butter, and he went through a plethora of different things about why peanut butter may not be a brilliant thing to have too frequently. So
hmm
yeah, the variety. This, if you're going to make that sort of keto or carnivorous keto change, I suppose the only way you can make it sustainable is if you have a really great deal of variety in your diet.
yeah, yeah.
I suppose then, so your energy levels now, what are they like now?
They're excellent. I really do wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and I
Mhm.
hop out of bed. I spend at least an hour in my sauna meditating before I even turn on my phone, doing affirmations, praying. Um, and I was doing high intensity interval training like 3 times a week, and now I do it every morning just because I want to. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
and then I go to the gym and I lift heavy. I am very productive. I focus. For someone who had really bad ADHD for so long, I have really good focus. And I never thought that I would be someone who works. I work every day of the week.
Mhm.
Every now and then I'll have a day where it's like, oh, I don't have any appointments today, and I'll enjoy it. But honestly, I don't tire like I used to. I have
Yeah.
very sharp focus. So mental energy is great. Physical energy is awesome. I would say that it is explosive at times. Um, and it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I sleep like a baby. Um, so you don't need carbs. You don't need carbs to do explosive workouts or lift
Yeah.
heavy. Depends on your goals. But when you're fat adapted and metabolically flexible, just um, just by removing carbs, we actually allow ourselves to use gluconeogenesis, which is when the liver produces glucose when it's needed. That's it's doing its job. So my body creates the glucose that I need. If I'm doing glucogenic exercise, my body, I can rely on my liver to produce that glycogen that needs to be replaced much quicker than what fat would do. And in addition to that, being in ketosis spares your lean muscle. Their ketones are muscle sparing. So for anyone who's trying to gain weight and they're like, how do I do it without carbs? It's actually going to protect your lean muscle. The combination of fat and protein is all that we need to gain weight and to gain muscle. And that is proven. Benjamin Bickman is really, really awesome on this stuff. Carbs are not needed. And energy is better. If I eat carbs, I am actually, my mood disorders start coming back and I'm foggy. I'm apathetic. My mood is affected and my energy is affected for sure.
Wow. You're kind of inspiring me now to make a new change just to see if I can kind of drop the carbs altogether and feel more optimal. It's like a lazy slippage I find for myself, whenever you start heading back in the direction of
That's what
consuming
I
carbs.
always say. They're a slippery slope. Yeah.
And then the nature, the characteristics of carbs, once you have some, you then crave them more, So if you can get through that first few weeks, you don't even crave them anymore, And I have a serious sweet tooth, so I kind of just need to say no, full stop.
Well, you can make the carnivore brownies, there are replacements for this stuff.
How do carnivore brownies work? Or what do they consist of? What do they consist of? Yeah.
Beef protein isolate, egg yolks, beef suet, and stevia.
Wow.
And they're phenomenal. They have, I have a vanilla, like a blondie recipe or chocolate, and you can use that same beef protein isolate to make ice cream. There are so many different things that you can do to make sweet treats. Like I work with a lot of people who are like, I have kids, I need to make this sustainable, I'm craving this. That's my job, is troubleshooting and coming up with recipes that not only promote satiety, I'm not just talking about fat bombs. Fat is very easy to overeat, just like carbs. It's energy dense, but when you're pairing fat and protein and you're restoring your leptin sensitivity, your fullness hormone by removing those carbs, it's hard to overeat. I make these carnivore brownies and they're usually sitting in my fridge or my freezer, because I'm just craving the meat. I fill up on my meat and I don't think about my next meal. I've gone 48 hours without eating on accident because I just don't, my relationship with food is entirely different. And it's total food freedom, but I still enjoy it like crazy. I mean, I'm a total foodie, so.
Wow. No, that's incredible. It's no surprise as well that you've got so much energy, because it seems like you've really shaped your life in such a way where you're kind of fully aligned with what you should be doing, if that makes sense. And then suddenly, 100%. Of course, it's that idea of, I think it was Warren Buffett, probably the most successful investor of the last 100 years, said he tap dances to work every morning. I think he's like 86 or something like this, but that's the idea. Whenever you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing, it doesn't feel like work, and you can pop out of bed and it's go time. It's also quite nice whenever you can step into your sauna each morning. I wouldn't mind rolling out of bed into the sauna.
Yeah, seriously.
So I suppose one thing we haven't touched on, which you're big on, in terms of, I can see you posting a lot about it in Instagram and things like this, is your faith. So have you always had like a close relationship with God, or is it something that has developed more in recent years, or how's that journey been for you?
I grew up in a Christian home. And, my relationship with God has come and gone over the years. Even when I was dealing with those mood disorders and I was in a very dark place, I knew that he was there, but I didn't feel his presence with me. And I definitely walked away from him multiple times. But even so, I knew that he loved me. But these challenges that I have faced in the more recent years showed me that it's a personal, intimate relationship. And when he delivered me from all of these issues,
Mhm.
it really was, I mean, I wouldn't have made the choice to go carnivore if it weren't for him twisting my arm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a voice and showing me you have to have grace with yourself because I have grace with you. I was being so dogmatic. I wanted to control everything. And he's like, you know, I believe that he allowed me to go through everything that I went through because it was a way for him to draw me nearer to him.
Yeah.
My entire life, I was a perfectionist, major OCD, and I never really surrendered everything to him. It
Mhm.
was all about what I wanted to do. So this was him saying, no, you have to trust me with it all. And if I hadn't gotten so desperate, I don't think I ever would have learned that it's for real.
Mhm.
Like he is there with you. He
Yeah.
wants to hear from you every day. He is the lover and creator of your soul. Like he is intimately calling you. And that's when my faith became real. I started doing affirmations, speaking healing and life out loud over my life. It challenged my faith. I felt silly doing it at first.
Yeah.
And that made me, question, why do I feel silly? Why do I feel a resistance?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
I really believe? And so this is really powerful. And I share these with my clients, and even clients who don't even know how they feel about God notice a difference with the affirmations
Yeah. Yeah.
because it challenges what you really believe. So um, I'm
And
an
did you find,
entirely different, yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, was there a difficulty initially whenever you were speaking outwardly about this? I imagine, it's an uncomfortable thing to start talking about for the first time or to start posting about for the first time. And it's like you incrementally, I imagine, would become braver with it. If you know what I mean, the more you do it, the more you become comfortable with talking about your faith, your love of
Yeah.
God, and then it just becomes intertwined with your whole being. So, yeah, was that something that you found a challenge initially, or how was that?
No, honestly, after that hospital room,
Yeah,
um, I didn't care what anyone else thought.
love it.
I can't help but give the glory to God
Yeah,
because without faith, none of it would be possible. And sure, I have some people call me out and they're like, you have yourself to thank. It's not all God. And it's like, yeah, I know, but it's all God inspired.
mm-hmm.
Like, sure, I chose to be obedient and my choices have definitely, benefited me, but God gave me the wisdom and the
Mm-hmm.
provision. And it all goes back to him. If I didn't learn to identify myself with him, I'm in love with him. I'm recklessly in love with him. So I don't, sometimes I think about, I guess when I did start becoming more open about it in my posts, it did cross my mind. Like, I wonder if I'm going to lose followers.
Yeah,
But in my mind, I was like, that's fine.
yeah,
Like, that's not what my purpose is in this life. My purpose is to bring others to God. Like, that's why I'm here. So, you know, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to speak the truth and what's
mm-hmm.
on my heart, and he provides all the rest. I was almost homeless last year. I was really struggling financially. I was paying off 3 fecal transplants and all these treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And he has provided above and beyond. I never thought that I would have, regular clients. I'm booked until mid-March and I'm still squeezing people in. Never thought that it would happen so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not worried. Like, even if it were all to happen again, I'm not worried. I just know that he is with me and he's not going to leave.
Yeah,
So it's not hard for me to talk about it. And I'm very, it's just like Jimmy Stewart and It's a Wonderful Life. I can't help it. Like, I want to shout about it. And,
listen, you
genuine.
you didn't see the video that I just put up, like you've never seen any of my videos.
No,
I can't
I
believe
hate
you
to say
I
it.
can't believe you just said it's like Jimmy Stewart and It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh,
And
why?
any one of the new subscribers that's just subscribed to my channel they're gonna find that remarkable that you just said that, because I was talking about I'll send you the video
I
afterwards
can't
anyway.
wait.
But no, that's crazy that you just mentioned that. But no, I totally get it. And it's I've had similar experiences in my life over the last few years in terms of I've always been Catholic growing up, but in terms of the way I live my life, moved very much away from faith, from school basically until my mid-20s. I'm like 29 now, but the last 3 or 4 years, I'm far from perfect. I sin every day, but I'm moving back in a more in a kind of direction where I'm putting God at the core of my life, and I am conversing with him daily, literally, and thanking him and making sure
Awesome.
that you do these things, and that's all really important. And yeah, like, I mean, obviously I've had different thoughts similar to yourself in terms of, God, I'm going to look crazy to different people, or different people mightn't like this, or different people might. And then, friends, family, neighbors, people in the street, who knows? But ultimately it doesn't matter. Once you know that this is what you have to do, and, you need to devote your life to God in whatever it is that you're doing, you just need to embrace him. Then there's sort of a sense of peace there, a sense of comfort and strength that you get with that. And you just have to carry on. So no, that's wonderful,
Yeah.
and that's a wonderful story.
I think just to bank on what you're saying, it actually gives me peace to resist my fears. When that thought creeps in my head, making that choice to put myself aside and relying on him, even just making that choice gives me peace, because I know that he's going to be the one with the reins. He's going to be the one taking control.
Yeah,
And I don't ever want to go without his spirit.
yeah,
So it's like I look forward to taking up my cross daily and surrendering,
love it.
because that's what and unleashes power in our lives, you know?
Yeah,
That's faith. That's an act of faith. So it's really cool that you're doing that too, and it's transformative.
big time. And here, sorry, before I interrupted you, you were actually talking about It's a Wonderful Life. What were you going to say there?
Oh, well, it's just like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, where he's just at the end, where he's just totally overwhelmed with gratitude and he's shouting about it. He's a different person.
Yeah,
And that's really how I feel.
yeah, running down the road waving. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I suppose just lastly on your work, like, well, you've sort of covered it already. I was going to ask, what are the different services that you offer? Is it just specifically, you mentioned that you actually come up with different meal plans, is that right? Or how does it work in terms of
So
the health coach?
I'm a health and life coach.
Yeah.
I believe that behavioral change is just as important. Um, and I I don't have created meal plans, because everyone is different, but I will sit down with someone and customize a meal plan with them to make it
Mhm.
sustainable. So I have these recipes. I help people troubleshoot, and I provide what is needed. We'll talk about specific macros, specific foods, um, sleep, everything, biohacking, supplements if needed, but they're usually not.
Mhm.
It's talking about our relationships with food, letting food be medicine. And my goal is for people to gain the intuition and understanding of their own bodies, that they don't ever have to pay anyone ever again.
Mhm.
And I work with people for systemic healing. It's not just, we'll do this and then you'll be good. No, I'm talking central nervous system, hormones, immune system. That's sustainable. Once you achieve that and you've experienced it, you learn how to make choices for yourself in the future when you want to change things up. Um, that's my goal for people, is to have food freedom and to heal, and to realize that they were made to thrive. And when we remove the interference and support our bodies with proper nutrition, and then layer on, mental health on top of that, and faith, I want the whole picture. I want people to realize I'm not the only one that this is for.
Yeah.
I'm not the exception. Miracles happen every day, but we are the ones that have to make the changes to get them.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm a miracle worker, but I'm saying that I want other people to know that they can feel and experience what I have. So it's usually one-on-one coaching. I offer unlimited coaching, which means that I'm on call. That does set me apart from a lot of people. I also choose to defer payment for years if needed, because I know what it's like to be totally out of money, but needing desperate help. And sometimes I'll work with families. I can travel for work. But yeah, it's basically whatever you need. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't do some things, but I try to provide, to be a real support system.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I love that deferred payment thing as well. That's exactly how we should live. That's exactly how we should live. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
no, it's brilliant that you kind of just stumbled across that yourself. Had you heard of anyone else doing that before, or did you just kind of?
No. And I usually don't talk about it on podcasts, but
Yeah.
It's like I have a roof over my head. I live in the ghetto and I'm happy. And God has provided. I guess it's all about where I've come from, so I know what it's like to be
It gives you a certain sense of humility, I suppose,
Yeah.
And then it's just like you're just grateful, and you're just looking to serve others in different ways, and then as long as you're kind of getting by, you're happy. So,
yeah.
No, that's amazing. I suppose lastly, just because I've asked the last couple of podcast guests the same question, is there anything you're particularly excited about for the remainder of 2021 or in the future in general?
I'm writing a book. So I'm very excited about that. And it's a process. I mean, I have to take breaks. It is like therapy, talking about the trauma that I've been through. And I get flashbacks. I have had a couple of nightmares, but then afterwards it's like, I'm excited to get it on paper. It's one thing to make these posts on Instagram, but to put it in a book is really exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing more people get their life back in a whole new way. I would love to meet a fat adapted, God-fearing man someday, but I'm not like biting at the bit. I'm happy if I'm single for the rest of my life. Like I'm already in love with Jesus. I'm good, but that would be a wonderful thing. But I don't think that's a 2021 goal necessarily.
Yeah, no. I don't think it works. I don't think it works like that. You know what I mean? In terms of a goal for the year. But I've absolutely no doubt that'll come sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you very much. That was a really remarkable conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I'm sure anyone that's watched the whole way through will join me in saying that you're a remarkable young lady, and wish you all the best for the future. But I have every faith that everything's going to be fine in your life. And it's funny. It's great to see younger people kind of just so willing and open to talk about God and faith and things like this as well. And just by continuing to do what you do, there's going to be a remarkable butterfly effect in terms of other people kind of moving in a similar direction. So great stuff. And thanks very much, and keep in touch.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Take care. God bless.
God bless.
Well, what about that? Remarkable story. And I've loads that I've taken away from that. So really hope that you're in a similar boat there. If you would like to follow along with Rebekah's journey, I'll put links in the description below under the YouTube video specifically. So if you're watching it on another platform, I'd encourage you to click into the YouTube link. And for more similar conversations, authentic conversations, challenging, good information, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel and potentially share, like, comment, all that good stuff. God bless. Much love. Keep the faith.